Adidas have had some questionable takedown models, especially at the mid-level price points, over the last several years, but they seem to be improving, the Predator 20.2 being a great example of that. Inside this box, I have the first takedown model below the top-end options in the new X Ghosted line, the X Ghosted.2, which bears a retail price of $120, and as you can see, features one of the most unusual lace cover designs ever to be featured on a pair of football boots. But besides that point, they're actually really good. Which is great news because I haven't truly been able to recommend a 0.2 takedown model in the Adidas X line since it came to be in 2015. But for $120, these are actually pretty decent. I'm gonna talk about why that is, going over all the specific details, including how they fit and feel on feet in today's video, as well as compare it a little bit to its main competitor, the $130 Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Pro. So if you're interested in learning more about these, please stick around, watch the entire review. And if you're interested in a pair for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That's gonna take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $120 retail price. If you guys do end up enjoying this one and perhaps wanna see more reviews of cheaper takedown model football boots, don't forget to support this video with a like and let me know specifically what you wanna see down below in the comment section. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already and don't wanna miss out on weekly videos on everything football boots, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So first things first, let's address the elephant in the room, and that is the very unusually designed lace cover across the top of the foot, where normally a lace cover would cover the laces, as the name would suggest. This one does that, but then it has two holes on both the lateral and medial side that lets the laces back out again, leaving them completely exposed. Now granted, you don't feel these little bits of laces, but visually, it's very unusual. And effectively what this is a regular one-piece construction, kind of like what you would find on the X Ghosted.1, where it uses a dual lace hole setup. But in order for that to work along with a lace cover, the laces have to come out from underneath the lace cover, which is very weird. And it also makes for only 3 lacing positions as opposed to 4, like you'd find on the 0.1 variation, which is also a little bit abnormal. And then when you tie the laces up, the laces end up crossing back over top of the lace cover to the point where it's really only covering up a very small section of the lacing system. So does it really need to be there? I would argue no, but it's something that I think they did for the sake of looks of the boots on the shelf as well as on websites to make them look a little bit more like the laceless X Ghosted Plus. So I guess it's a matter of opinion as to whether or not you think this is a good or bad idea. I don't think it's entirely necessary, but it's also not detrimental to the feel or performance of the boots. So I guess there's that. And for those that will ask, you could technically cut it off if you really wanted to, but is that worth voiding your warranty? In my opinion, no. Weird lace cover aside, what Adidas have done with the upper on the X Ghosted.2 is pretty impressive, and I might even go as far as to say that I prefer it ever so slightly to the fluoroskin upper found on the X Ghosted.1. You'll notice from the outside it appears to have a mesh base to it, which really isn't anything new. We've seen that on previous X generations. However, looks can be deceiving because if you look inside of the boot, you'll notice that it's very, very thin, semi-translucent. That's because this pattern that you see on the outside is just a thin layer of textile in this pattern as a base layer. So that's adding some structure to the upper. And then you have thin layers of polyurethane, multiple layers in certain spots. You can see the slight tone difference in the color itself to create what is a one-piece construction for the upper, really giving you this raw, barefoot, thin synthetic feel. This doesn't have any padding or softness to it. It's more along the lines of the synthetic F50 Adizero days with much more pliability. This actually feels less plasticky to me than, again, that fluoroskin upper on the more expensive 0.1 variation. And it's also very high end in terms of its construction. Again, if you look inside the boot, there is no additional liner. All of the structure is incorporated into the material, which really gives you this one-to-one connected sensation to the ball, a true barefoot sensation, which is fantastic. That material basically flows throughout the majority of the upper. You can see the cutoff point here on the lateral side, and then the cutoff point being a little bit further back on the medial side. But basically all the parts of the boot that you are going to be making contact with the ball with the most are made out of this really premium speed skin material, where the back half of the boot is lined in more of a mesh-based synthetic that has an internal plastic heel counter anyway, so it's not really that important. And then of course it does have a one-piece enclosure underneath this lace cover, with the central portion of the upper being filled in this elasticated mesh material that feels nice and comfortable. I think there's a little bit too much slack to it if I'm being really critical, but for the most part it feels really nice, and it gives you this nice wrap around your foot. And again, that premium barefoot sensation that we're not used to seeing from 0.2 takedown models from the Adidas brand. Moving to the rear, this is where things get a little bit less impressive. You'll notice that it is a low cut design and it doesn't have an external heel counter. That's because this is not the same speed frame as the top end models. In fact, it's a very different design. Nonetheless, there is an internal plastic heel counter that provides a decent amount of structure, and it maintains this little kind of extended piece here at the back that I think is a little bit too structured for how tall it actually stands. So depending on how they fit you, and this is going to vary from person to person, these little corners here could potentially cause excessive rubbing, which could potentially lead to blisters. So something to be aware of the first couple times you're wearing these boots. Nonetheless, it shouldn't be an issue for most people. And then lining the inside of the heel liner is this very soft kind of synthetic suede material, decent amount of padding. I've complained a lot about Adidas takedown models having a very shallow fit in the heel. This could be a touch deeper in my opinion, but for the most part, the depth of the heel in terms of overall fit and lockdown is not an issue whatsoever, which is really good for them to have finally fixed what seems to be such a simple issue. And then internally, the insole, it is unfortunately glued in. You kind of expect a removable insole at this particular price point. So again, it is another case of Adidas somewhat cheaping out there. Moving to the sole plate and stud pattern, while it's nowhere near as nice as what you'll find on the top end models, it is a huge improvement in comparison to pretty much any other 0.2 Adidas takedown model that I can think of over the last 5 years. It's a TPU plastic sole plate with no Carbitex carbon fiber insert in the forefoot. Obviously, you can see it's filled in with this silver color, and in comparison, it's not at all similar in terms of feel. This is a lot more flexible, which is kind of an unusual characteristic for an Adidas takedown model, where often the sole plates can be awkwardly stiff. Not the case here at all. It feels very natural, and honestly, I don't mind the super flexible feel because it matches the flexibility and pliability of this particular upper and just makes for a very comfortable sensation. If you were hoping for that kind of spring back effect that you do get from the 0.1 models, it's not present here on the 0.2 because of this softer plastic that they've used, but there is adequate structure because of the ribbed design that you have running through the midfoot area. So it does feel solid in all of the right spots. And then as far as the FG stud pattern is concerned, this is the new design for the X Ghosted model. And it's pretty much the same as what you'll find on the higher end boots. A lot more aggressive than previous generation of X, where you're gonna find that most of the studs have this kind of bladed shape to them. Kind of this weird chevron style, where part of the chevron is actually a little bit lower than the main part of the blade. Nonetheless, it's the same general layout we're used to seeing from the Adidas brand, just more aggressive than what we previously had with the X19 generation. Not quite Mercurial aggressive, but comes pretty close, and honestly is a nice improvement over what we had before. And then finally, when it comes to weight, while the X Ghosted.2 isn't a heavy football boot, I don't think that they're as light as they should be, especially considering they still cost $120. It's a lot less than the top end models, but it's still not inexpensive. In a size 9.5 US, you can see that the X Ghosted.2 weighs in at 8.7 ounces, the equivalent of 246 grams, which if we're comparing that to the weight of the $10 more expensive Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Pro, those weigh 2 ounces less and are just under 200 grams. So in terms of a side-by-side comparison, especially the feel of the boots on feet, the Mercs are gonna feel a lot lighter than these, although there's an argument to be made that these are more comfortable. Whichever way you wanna look at it, while they're not heavy, they're not particularly lightweight speed boots. So as you can see, I have not swapped the stock white laces out for some SR4U laces, and that's because there's not really much of a point to when most of the laces are covered, and I feel like a contrasting color sticking out the sides might actually look a little bit weird, at at least on this mostly white colorway. But with a lot of boots that have lace cover, sometimes they can be tricky to put on. These ones not so much. It's cut nice and deep here at the front, and this piece is very, very elasticated, more so than what you'll find on the 0.1. Plus they give you this little heel tab to kind of grab onto as you're putting them on. So just make sure you loosen the laces, and then you kind of just slide them on as you would any other football boot that has a one-piece upper. Pretty straightforward, kind of adjust it at the edges, make sure everything is nice and snug. And then from there, because it's such a shallow lacing system, you kind of just tie them up from here, and you're pretty much good to go. On feet, the X Ghosted.2 is really impressive. This is leaps and bounds ahead of any of the 0.2 takedown models that Adidas have made probably over the last 5 or 6 years in terms of overall fit and comfort. The feel of this upper is that of a top-end model. It really does feel fantastic. The fit of the boot is well above average for a takedown model. The lockdown through the midfoot and heel, despite the shallow lacing system, as well as the weird lace cover design, is also really solid. The sole plate is nice and flexible, which is not necessarily the case with a lot of Adidas takedown models. And the boots as a whole just feel very well put together. No major complaints whatsoever, other than maybe the heel, which I think could have a slightly deeper fit, but it's not really a major concern. As far as width and shape is concerned, these are going to be wide enough to fit most people. It's a very similar shape to that of the more expensive 0.1 model, but it seems to be slightly lower in volume through the toe box and forefoot area, which I'm personally a big fan of. I think it wraps your foot just close enough, but doesn't necessarily have that squeeze your foot sensation of something like a Mercurial. So it's a little bit different in that regard. But if you've worn X boots in the past, you kind of know what to expect in terms of overall fit. Again, I think they'll fit most people pretty comfortably. And then as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you're looking to order a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, can I recommend the X Ghosted.2? And I think the answer to that question is yes, if you're after a football boot that has a premium barefoot feel for the ball, is super comfortable, and also has pretty aggressive traction. Those are the three things that I think this football boot does extremely well, especially considering the lower price point. If we're comparing the 0.2 model to the X Ghosted.1, which retails for significantly more at $225, the 0.1 is just a much better football boot. The tech that's been incorporated there and the overall feel that it has on offer truly feels not only just really premium, but also very different from other football boots that are currently available. So this isn't quite on that level, although there's still some elements of that boot that do trickle down into the 0.2, which I definitely do appreciate. And if we're comparing this to the $130 Nike Mercurial Vapor 13 Pro, if you're after a raw speed boot in terms of overall feel, I still think the Mercs are maybe the better option. But if you have slightly wider feet, and again, you really value a more comfortable feel over something that is a little bit lighter and maybe a little bit more responsive, then I definitely think that you'd actually prefer the X Ghosted.2 over the Mercs. It is ultimately a matter of personal preference. Objectively, the Mercs are probably a little bit better, but this is as close as Adidas has come in a very long time, which is definitely not a bad thing. If you can get past the weird lace cover, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That's gonna take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $120 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.